If you think space is empty, quiet, and indifferent, then you've never heard what happens when humans decide someone isn't allowed to die today. Welcome to Coming the HFY, where every story proves that humanity doesn't just fight back, it rewrites the rules of survival itself. So before we begin, make sure you subscribe, because what you're about to hear is the kind of story the galaxy tried very hard to bury. The void beyond the outer trade lanes was supposed to be safe, monitored, patrolled, predictable, but on that day, it became a graveyard waiting to happen. Commander Elias Grant tightened his grip on the armrests of the bridge chair aboard the UES Valiant Horizon as the ship lurched violently under another barrage, the impact reverberating through the hull like a living thing screaming in pain. Red emergency lights flooded the command deck, turning every face into a shadowed mask of tension and resolve. "Hull integrity down to 61%, shouted Ensign Tarek Ilian from the damage station, his voice cracking despite his training. "They came out of nowhere, we didn't even get a full sensor sweep." Grant didn't respond immediately, his eyes locked on the tactical display where 3 massive enemy cruisers hovered like predators circling wounded prey, each one dwarfing his ship, each one armed with enough firepower to erase them several times over. The Karthik Dominion didn't negotiate, didn't issue warnings, they simply found targets and removed them from existence with cold efficiency. "Time until their next firing solution?" Grant asked, his voice steady in a way that came not from calm, but from refusal to break. 38 seconds, came the reply. 38 seconds. Grant looked around the bridge, 21 crew members, every one of them watching him, trusting him, waiting for an order that might be their last. Without another word, he reached forward and activated the emergency beacon, sending a tight band distress signal into the endless dark. "If anyone's out there," he muttered under his breath, "we could really use a miracle." 10 light minutes away, cutting through the void like a blade, the UES Hammer of Dawn drifted in silent readiness, a Titan-class warship whose very existence had reshaped battle doctrines across 3 sectors. Admiral Cassandra Hale stood on the bridge, reviewing routine reports, when the distress signal cut through every channel like a scream. "Unidentified engagement," reported her tactical officer, Lieutenant Adrian Cross, his tone sharpening instantly. "Karthik's signatures confirmed. 1 human vessel under heavy assault. They won't last long." Hale didn't flinch. She set aside the datapad in her hand with deliberate calm, her expression hardening into something colder than space itself. "Plot an intercept," she said. Cross hesitated. "Admiral, to reach them in time we'd have to push the reactor past safe output, at least 140%. That's well beyond operational limits." Hale turned her head slightly, her gaze locking onto him with quiet intensity. "I didn't ask about limits, Lieutenant. I asked how fast we can get there." A beat of silence passed across the bridge, the kind that separates hesitation from decision. 10 minutes and 40 seconds, Cross answered. Hale nodded once. "Do it." Then, louder, her voice carrying across every deck of the ship. "All hands, battle stations. We have people out there who think they're alone. Let's prove them wrong." The Hammer of Dawn came alive in an instant, engines roaring as power surged through its systems, the ship accelerating beyond what its designers had ever intended, its hull beginning to glow faintly from the strain of forced velocity. Back on the Valiant Horizon, the situation was collapsing fast. Another volley slammed into their starboard side, tearing through armor and venting atmosphere into space. In the lower decks, Chief Medical Officer Dr. Aaron Vance dragged an injured technician through smoke-filled corridors, ignoring the sharp sting of a head wound that blurred his vision, his only focus keeping his crew alive 1 more minute. Grant ordered return fire, but their weapons barely scratched the enemy shields. It was like throwing stones at a mountain. The Karthik ships adjusted their formation, tightening the noose, their movements almost casual, like hunters who knew their prey had nowhere left to run. A transmission crackled through the bridge speakers, distorted but unmistakable. "Surrender your vessel," the alien voice translated, cold and emotionless. "Your resistance is irrelevant." Grant leaned forward, activating the ship-wide comm. "This is Commander Grant," he said, his voice clear and unwavering despite the chaos around him. "We hold. We fight. And we don't give up." He paused, glancing at the flickering tactical display. "Because someone's coming." The crew didn't cheer. They didn't need to. They simply went back to their stations, holding the line with everything they had left. On the lead Karthik cruiser, the fleet overseer watched the human ship with detached curiosity, already calculating the final strike that would end the engagement. "Weapons ready," his officer reported. "Fire on my mark," the overseer replied. And then everything changed. "Contact!" screamed another officer. "Hyperspace rupture, close range." The overseer turned just in time to see it. A massive human warship tearing into real space, not at a safe distance, not with caution, but directly into the battlefield, engines blazing like a second sun, its hull glowing with the heat of an overdriven reactor, trailing a wake of superheated plasma that lit the void itself. It didn't slow down. It didn't hesitate. It opened fire before it had even fully stabilized. Railguns thundered, plasma lances ignited, and experimental mass drivers unleashed kinetic devastation at speeds the Karthik defenses couldn't track. The first cruiser vanished in a storm of energy and shattered metal, its shields collapsing instantly under the overwhelming assault. The second attempted evasive maneuvers, too slow. The third turned to flee. Across every frequency, a calm human voice cut through the chaos. "This is Admiral Cassandra Hale of the UES Hammer of Dawn," she said, her tone almost conversational. "You are engaging a vessel under the protection of United Earth Command." A brief pause, just long enough for the words to sink in. "That was your only warning." The second cruiser detonated moments later, its core breached by a direct mass driver impact. The third barely made it 3 kilometers before a concentrated volley tore it apart, scattering debris across the void like dust. 17 seconds after its arrival, the battlefield was silent. The docking clamps of the Hammer of Dawn locked onto the battered Valiant horizon, and within moments, Admiral Hale stepped through the airlock, her presence steady, controlled, as if she had simply walked across a hallway instead of through a war zone. Commander Grant was waiting for her, his uniform scorched, a thin line of dried blood along his temple, but standing straight regardless. "Cutting it a bit close, Admiral," he said, a faint grin breaking through the exhaustion. Hale glanced around at the damaged ship, the weary but alive crew, the flickering lights that still held back the darkness, and allowed herself the smallest hint of a smile. "You sent the signal," she replied. "We answered." She extended her hand, and Grant took it without hesitation, their grip firm, unspoken understanding passing between them. "That's how it works," she added simply. Hours later, as repair crews stabilized the Valiant horizon, far beyond human space, a Karthik command node replayed the engagement data in silence. 1 human warship. 10 minutes. 3 cruisers destroyed. 0 hesitation. The overseer studied the footage again and again, searching for a flaw, a mistake, a weakness, and finding none. Finally, he issued a single directive, logged under a newly created classification within their war archives: avoid human vessels. Do not engage. And out in the endless dark, where countless species still believed they were alone when disaster struck, humanity continued to listen, continued to answer, continued to arrive faster than fear itself, because to them, it was never a question of whether someone was worth saving, only how quickly they could get there. And if you want more stories like this, where humans prove why the galaxy both fears and depends on them, don't forget to subscribe to Coming the HFY, because the next signal in the void might already be on its way.